I'm pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We're live.
Let me go live here, man.
Yeah, man.
Well,
we live on
TikTok.
On the TikToks.
Yeah, we're live, man. We're live. We are live.
All right, good to see you, man. This is show
62.
60.
60. No shit. Okay.
60. We've had a 2-week break.
Yeah, we did.
We did that for a lot of reasons. First off, he's running the empire, and it's a little difficult at times.
He's been busy lately. Yes.
But
the election.
We have to talk about the election.
Yeah. I mean, what do you want to talk about?
I think both of us are extremely pleased with what happened.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a referendum.
It needed to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, it was definitely it was America waking up is the way I looked at it. You may not agree with everything, Trump stands for or the Republicans stand for, but when you win 312 electoral votes and the popular vote and the House and the Senate, I mean, that's telling the left something.
If they're paying attention.
Amiss. Yeah, like something's amiss. Like we've got to get back to just normal. Like just normal life.
Were you surprised by the ass kicking?
No, I wasn't.
To the extent that it was?
I thought it was gonna either be she won close or he destroyed her.
Yeah.
It was not gonna be if he was not gonna win close. If he was gonna win, it was gonna be a landslide, in my opinion.
Yeah, I thought he would get just a little under 300, but he got 312, right?
I thought 300, maybe 301. I didn't really do the math. I thought he'd be close to 300, and he, 312. I think is what it ended.
What state surprised you the most that he took?
Oh, honestly, I don't know. He took. I mean, Georgia, not really.
For me, it was Michigan.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, if I had to pick one, that's probably up there, definitely.
But in turns, he had a decent margin of victory in Michigan too. That's the crazy part.
I mean, PA, I figured he was going to win.
Did you?
I had it because again, like I go by what I see. I said the same thing in 2016 when all the polls were saying Hillary was winning so bad in Pennsylvania. I saw no Hillary signs. All I saw were Trump signs. Same thing here. I've seen. For every 3 Harris signs I saw 15 Trump signs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, like there's got to be something to that.
Although, would you say the Trump voters were much more passionate about their candidate? And I think generally most folks were lukewarm about Harris. We're Democrats. Yeah. They were lukewarm about it.
Yeah, because here's why. This is the way I look at it. You had 2020 was a not Trump vote. Mm-hmm. That's what it was, right? Mm-hmm. They thought that would carry over into this year. They looked at it.
They tried to make that happen.
Well, right. They tried
lawfare and all the other
with everything else they did, right? They tried to make it be that case. They didn't have a strong candidate at all. But let's just be real. Like not saying anything. She wasn't a strong candidate.
Obvious, man.
And they didn't have enough of the not Trump votes because again, the economy was shitty. There's too many problems right now, and people aren't looking at it. People are singularly focused on a issue, which may be important to them, but sometimes you have to take a step back and look at what does the whole want. Like, there's been all this talk about all these different things, and just craziness. It's like, okay, well, if a majority of Americans voted for him, that's got to be telling you something. Maybe it's time to take a step back and look at what really matters. Maybe it matters to you, but it doesn't matter to the majority.
See, to me, this was the biggest no-brainer in history in terms of what people were voting for. It's called survival. And what I mean by survival is you have to have enough money to keep a roof over your head, take care of your family.
Yeah.
And pay the bills, eat, right? The survival things,
100%
are in question now. Can I afford the basics for a lot of people?
That is exactly right. Well, and that was something like I saw. I've just watched a lot of videos since the election, just kind of hearing what people are saying, right? And I saw this one guy. I don't know if he's a content creator or a podcaster, but he was talking about that, and he was saying that people, that this rhetoric is coming out. Well, you chose, cheaper groceries over women's reproductive rights, or this or that, and his position was, he's like, people voted for what, like the survival vote. He's like,
Oh,
people
of course.
He's like, so for you to say that people should have voted for, like, these other things over their basic economic needs, he's like, that's privilege. He's like, you're talking about all this privilege. He's like, that's privilege to tell people you should care about my feelings more than supporting or providing for your family.
And arrogance and everything else that goes along with it.
I'm not taking anything away from that. Like, I'm all for whatever, but it's like, just because someone didn't go along with what you thought they should have done does not mean they're saying, F you, we don't believe in that. It's like they're voting for what matters to them.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of that in everybody,
right?
But when you're looking at, well, why did the election go the way it went? I mean, if you drill it down, it's, people want to survive. They want to feel. They want less stress. That they're going to have enough money at the end of the week.
Yes,
to make their obligations.
Yes, this election, in my mind, if you look at it holistically, it was an election that says your feelings don't matter anymore. The economics of this country matter.
Oh, yeah, our basic survival.
Yeah, that's what I mean. When that's out the door, like, feelings don't matter. We've got to get back to that economic stability.
Well, I think it's a referendum too that it exposed one very obvious fact to me, and that is that during this 4-year pandemic period, that as a society, we elevated the importance of things that in reality weren't going to last. The importance of them was artificial and temporary. And now we as a country somewhat have our sanity back.
Yeah.
In terms of stack ranking priorities, with survival probably being at the forefront.
Yes.
Right?
Energy independence.
Exactly right. So the feelings and the whims that were artificially elevated to degrees of importance in society are now pushed down where they belong or kicked out.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm including the concept of wokeness. I'm including that in there.
Yeah.
So it's going to be fascinating to see how companies react to this DEI, and is this slowly going to start to fade away now? If we're going to start worrying less and less about pronouns and offending people, and can we get back to just everybody look to the other person in a kinder way?
Yeah, right.
And ignore their business and get on with ours, and just start taking care of the things that need to be taken care of instead of these artificial bullshit mantras that we've been living under for 4 years. I think now it's starting to stop.
Yeah, I think because look, I think the people that voted for Trump, call them Republicans or leaning right Democrats or moderates, whoever voted for Trump, right? They just got tired of getting picked on, because that's really it. Like,
certainly,
like landslide victory. You don't hear Republicans like bashing Democrats now, saying "F you, F this, F your rights," and we don't care. It's just about we're just like, okay, we won. How do we get the country back on track? But when something goes, they resort to, when they win, they resort to attacking. When they lose, they resort to attacking. The stuff I've seen posted just since the election from people all over the board, I'm just like, man, like that's a shame that you think that way.
Well, I think if you go back in history, though, it's always kind of been this way for as long as I can remember. But the left philosophy within the Democratic Party, the extreme left, has always been the most volatile, the most vocal, the most bombastic. A lot of it ends up being just words. It's not really rooted in like action. But you see some of that with the Palestinian stuff, and I don't want to get into all that. But the point is, there is protest and all that. But I think that the far left has always had an element of in your face, like boisterous verbals.
Yes.
So this really isn't a surprise to me. It's channeled toward, Trump is the latest thing they're pissed off about it. But 4 years from now, it'll be something else. It'll be Vance, whoever runs next. It's very subjective to whatever they want it to be. But I think it's more words than anything else. And in the end, the problem with that is the longer they complain, the more they complain, the longer they complain, and the less power they have within the constraints of our political system, the faster they're going to go away.
Well, because look what else this election told you is traditional media doesn't matter anymore. Like, look what
changing times.
Look what Trump and Vance did. They went on podcasts, like very popular ones, and spoke for real. Like,
had conversations,
had real conversations. Like Trump talked about his brother that had like, that's why he's never drank, because his brother was an alcoholic, had an alcohol problem. He's never had a sip of alcohol in his life. Like, there's things you learn about these people by being vulnerable to not knowing what the questions are, not in a debate, just having these people, like young people, old people.
I think Trump thrives off that.
He does, because he's not a puppet, and he's not someone that's told what to say. He's going to say whatever he wants, whether you like it or not, whether it's right or wrong. He's going to say what's on his mind.
For the most part, when I watched the Vance appearance on Rogan, I got the same vibe from him too.
Yeah.
He's just really polished.
Yeah.
But in a real human kind of way.
Yeah. Like, I love to hear the story when he talked about his kid. Like, when he took his kid on the plane and his kid swore. Like, it's like, that's the real side.
Of course.
You saw that. It's like, okay, like they are real people. And how he said, he's like, I
want to go hang out with Hunter Biden.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, yeah, I mean, it's just, and that shows you right there how the times have changed and how the Democrats lost touch. Because I believe that in this election, the Democrats looked at it as, wokeism still is in charge. We can still tell people what to think, what to do. And if they don't agree with us, and we can play the victim card. I think just too many people said, we're done with it. Like, enough with the victim card, enough with this bullshit. Let's just get back. No one's saying that. No Republicans are saying like, fuck you to all these things, right? They're just saying, do you let me do me, but don't tell me that I have to believe what you believe. That's the crux of it all.
And I am old enough to tell you that what you just described used to be like this.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Right. I know. The
Democratic Party was supposedly,
yeah,
I'm not sure was always that way, but supposedly was a party of freedom and, and fight the man and all this stuff. And it really is flipped now. How the Democratic Party became an authoritarian party. I mean, they set themselves up over a couple decades to do that by all these government programs and going the federal route of everything and consolidating money and taxes and all that stuff. They kind of set themselves up to become what they are.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. They had a pandemic to maybe cement it.
Yeah, right. Exactly right.
But what a window for the conservatives to rebrand themselves. And it really wasn't to me a big stretch. You needed a candidate, and it really is fascinating to me that Trump was the right guy at the right time to reinvent the Republican Party. And I think now you've got a younger swath of folks coming up that can learn from the Trump way and maybe still have some of the more traditional ways and mold that into a new thing, maybe. So. But what the Republican Party was lacking before Trump was any bridge to the young, any bridge to the youth. You had these very elder statesmen, fuddy-duddies, according to the youth, right? And that's why Romney couldn't get over the hump. I really believe that
it's truly like I was talking to Gabe in the office. I said, what won the election for Trump was his generation and my generation. Like, you think about it, like his generation and the women of his generation.
Yes.
He gained 11 points.
Yes.
In college age women, right?
Yes.
Younger women. And then the Gen X, our generation, right? We came out and voted because we just got tired of it. Like, again, like how we talked like 6 months ago.
I think he always had us, though.
Yeah, but I think more people came out to vote for him this time.
Yeah,
more women did.
For sure.
More different demographics.
But also our children's generation, too. The podcast generation.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's kind of Gabe's generation. That's exactly right. Because you look at it, like, we always went out and voted. But I think a bigger portion of us and a lot more women in our demographic went out and voted for him this time.
Yeah.
Because it got to a point where we just got tired of like all those Gen X videos that were coming out 6 months ago, like, don't poke the bear. Like, they didn't realize that was going to have an impact on the actual election.
Oh, certainly.
Because now it's like, okay, we're done with this shit. Like,
certainly.
Let's just get back to normal. Like, And that's all the country wants, truly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's like what you've been saying on here for 6 years or 5 years. It's like we all generally probably want the same thing.
Yeah.
You get a swath of people in a room and you ask them the same questions. You're gonna
Yeah.
the basic things, basic needs, basic wants. We're all there.
Yeah.
Just how we get there.
Yeah. Like I want to pay my fair share in taxes. I want to help other people. I want everybody to have the freedom.
Like it's going somewhere.
Yeah, like I want to have people to have the freedom to live how they want. And my morals and my values aren't more important than yours.
Right.
And we should all look at it that way. Like if you believe something, that's great for you to believe. I don't have to believe it. That doesn't mean I hate you, and you shouldn't hate me if I don't agree with you.
My biggest issue with the Democratic Party in my lifetime, especially the last 20, 25 years, is the authoritarian nature of the way they govern or their philosophy. It's I don't like, in the purest sense, Rocco, I don't like two very big things that the Democratic Party, especially the last 4 years, has brought out as their mantra. Number one, it's authoritarian. They want to tell you what you can and cannot do. They make it a philosophy.
Right. That's right.
We know what's best for you.
Yeah.
You can't make it on your own.
Right.
But we're going to help you and show you the way. That goes back generations on the Democratic Party. The other thing, though, that's a more recent phenomenon, which they're taking it a step further. It's like Jordan Peterson. He explains exactly what I've been feeling. And that is, they want to compel you to speak the way they want you to speak. You can't compel my speech. Right. You can't tell me I need to address people in a certain way. You can't tell me that I can or cannot use certain words.
Right.
You can't tell me what I find humorous and what I don't find humorous. That is, it's such an affront to my freedom as a human being.
Yeah.
Not just me, I'm sure with a lot of people, but
yeah,
you can't compel my speech. I'm not going to use the words you want me to use. I'm not going to, you're not going to command or have me act on demand based upon your whims.
No, and we shouldn't be made to feel like we're evil. If I don't put pronouns on my email signature or my LinkedIn page, I shouldn't be made to feel like I'm a bad person because I assume that my name's Rocco. I look like a guy. Most people are going to assume that. And if they assume something else, okay, I'll correct them. I don't need to put pronouns out there because, again, when I've asked people, because I'm always curious, like why they do that. I've gotten a couple answers. One, well, my company requires me to. I only know why my company requires me to. Well, it's the right thing to do. I said, what does that mean, the right thing to do?
Yeah, why is it the right thing?
Explain to me what is right and who's telling you it's the right thing to do. And the right according to who? I mean, when you ask those three questions, which are the deeper questions, there's not really a good answer. No. Well, it's just the right thing to do so people don't feel or don't mislabel. I said, okay, well, if they mislabel you, are you going to get pissed? Well, no. Okay, so then what's the issue? And like, do you think you would be mislabeled? And when you say right, like right in accordance with what? Like, what is the standard you're measuring that against?
Well, yeah.
Again, that's where we get lost.
It's authoritarian.
Right.
Right. And they're compelling your speech. They're saying you must use these 17 pronouns.
Right.
But you must reveal your own.
But that's my thing. Like I come back to say, okay, well, you're saying it's the right thing. Because this is where I like to go with people. You're saying it's the right thing to do. What is the standard of right you're looking at? Is it morally right? Is it biblically right? Is it legally right? Like, what is the standard you're saying? Or is it what they told you is right?
It's politically right.
Correct. Like, that's the thing. And it's like, is that really a standard? Or is that just what you're told the standard is?
If we give it power, should it have power? Absolutely not.
And that's the thing. And then I say, well,
it's a whim.
Yeah. And then people aren't critically thinking. They're just doing and not asking the question as to why they're doing it. And if they truly have legitimate reason, great. Like, I'm not saying anything against it, but I'm saying I've asked people that question, they don't really know. So I'm like, then why are you doing it? What's the right thing to do?
The whims of the few must not have an undue burden on the lives of the many. I mean, you can go back to that because that is the crux of what they the far left philosophy
Yeah.
in this country.
Yeah.
And they feel they have a quote unquote, whatever their definition of right is,
Yeah.
they have a right to enact and demand.
Mm-hmm.
They want to compel my speech.
And if you don't agree with it,
I will not.
That's, you're the bad person.
Will not. Okay, so you have two kinds of people there.
Okay.
When you just mentioned, like, I shouldn't, we shouldn't feel bad because they say that, we'll do this. It goes, that doesn't even faze me because I just don't care. And I think there's a lot of Americans that don't care. And I think this election proves that a lot of Americans just don't care anymore. Like you said earlier, it's not about feelings anymore.
No,
they just don't care who's feeling the hurt. If I can't get a loaf of bread and some jelly for my kids, I don't give a shit who I bother or who I offend.
And again, this is,
why can't buy gas?
Right. That video of that guy talking, when he was talking about how they're saying all this shit about privilege, like the fact that you believe your feelings matter than the economics of a family being able to support themselves is the definition of privilege. And he was like, just look in the mirror.
For sure.
And I'm like, that is.
Is that the problem with politics, though? Is the pot's always calling the kettle black.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's true. 100%.
I mean, the thing, I grew up in
both sides do it. Let's be real.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, most definitely. I grew up with a term that was bounced around my house a lot too, and I saw a lot of examples of limousine liberals. Whereas it's more of a recent phenomenon than way back, because I really believe that in my childhood and back, the Democratic Party was actually the party of the working class, the working people. I believe that it changed. It definitely changed, but like John Kerry is a perfect example of a limousine liberal. There, they will tell you, authoritarian, how to live. You can't have this much fossil fuel. You can't leave this carbon footprint. You're doing this and you're hurting this. You need to do this and this. And then they go and they live a different way. They live the way they want to live. Yeah. They'll tell you otherwise. But they'll, right in front of your face, they'll violate all the things they just say. That's exactly right. And think they're entitled to do it. Right. That's the definition of just insanity. And I think enough people. Yeah. I mean, during the pandemic, you had Newsom in California going to parties with no masks. You had the people the people who were authoritarian figures and enacting rules and regulations on us weren't living that way. No, and I think a lot of people too vote just because that's what they've always been told to vote. They don't even know why. I remember my grandmother before she passed. This was, I can't remember what year this was. It might have been 2012 or she passed in 2017. I remember because she was a Democrat. She was always a Democrat. And I would always ask why? Well, I'm a Democrat. I'm like, okay, cool. I know. There was an article in GQ magazine. I said it was talking about there was a class of kids, and it said the kids are told if you jump rope for so long you'll get candy. So they had half the class jump rope, and they were jumping rope and they got candy. And so then after they were done, they're like, okay, well, the other half of the class didn't get any candy. So you kids that jump rope, you should give each of the kids on the other side of the class a piece of your candy. And the question was, is that fair? And I read to my grandma, she's like, no, that's not fair. And it said, welcome to the Republican Party. And it was like that simple, and that's a simplification of it, but it really was. It's like, we're giving things to people that aren't working for it themselves. I'm not saying across the board. I'm saying there are a lot of things that the left is trying to do to keep people on the government rolls. Of course. That's really what it boils down to. Of course. Don't worry. If you keep voting for us, you don't have to do shit. We'll just keep taking care of things. Well, the joke was, what's the biggest problem with socialism? Well, you run out of other people's money. I mean, it's true. It's core. It absolutely is. Yeah, absolutely right. You demonize the people generating the wealth that you tax to pay for all this shit that you want for free. How's that work? Well, that's exactly right. And I always say, as people progress through life, and I think views always change, right? Because I'm sure I was a lot more conservative years ago. I've come more towards the libertarian, right? Fiscally conservative, socially. I'm more liberal in that. Basically, I don't my morals are my morals, yours. I don't really care. Stay out of my lane, I'll stay out of your lane. Right. I'm not going to argue with you over something. But isn't that the Republican Party now? That's what I'm saying. I think the Republican Party has shifted that way. Of course it has. That used to be the Democratic conservatism Party. Is correct. And I think it's shifted. Not that they were fiscally conservative, but they weren't as crazy as they were. Right. You're right.
I think it's shifted now. People are getting caught up in just the label of being a liberal. And it's like, well, what does a liberal truly stand for? Like freedom of choice. Like
the labels are the problem.
Well, there's yeah, I mean, I understand there's a lot of problems.
But,
a lot of problems.
But yeah, and the idea that, I mean, as a people, are we smart enough to discern which way we lean without actually taking the label and putting it on our chest?
We should be able to. We don't. This is the problem. This is what I believe a lot of the problem is. We want to be labeled, so we belong to something.
Oh yeah, man. We talked.
I mean, look at it. I mean, think about this. I mean, it's the truth,
crazy though,
right? People like labels because it gives them a sense of being on a team.
So we want the identity.
Yeah, I mean, look at people that wear sports jerseys, right? Like, look at people that, like, I own sport. I have Red Sox jerseys.
Yeah,
like, I have.
We don't hold that against you,
right? But that's my team. Like, I'm part of that tribe. It's a symbol of that. And I think the same thing happens in politics, right? Like, you want that label to feel a part of something. But the problem I see is that people aren't deep diving and trying to understand, is it the right label for them? Because maybe it's not either or. Maybe it's somewhere in the middle. Like me, like I don't sit there and say I'm a staunch Republican or a staunch Democrat. I am fiscally conservative, socially liberal. Call me what you call me.
So it's really kind of you're an undefined beast, which I think most people, they're honest with themselves, are probably in the same boat.
Yeah, I do. And I think people aren't honest with themselves. They think they have to have an opinion. They have to take a position on something, especially a lot of these controversial social issues. When it comes to these they think they have to have a position or they have to take issue with it. To me, like there are certain things I have no opinion over.
Yeah,
it doesn't affect me.
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, it's funny too. I had this conversation with someone about a week ago, right after election, and they were so disappointed because they were big into the new Green Deal, and they had drilled down with all the money that Biden had appropriated under that big tax bill. There was a lot for
infrastructure
green bill. Yeah, there was a lot of whatever. And he was just shell shocked that at first I didn't understand everything about it, that I wasn't aware of all and that I really just didn't do anything for me. And he really took affront to that. Like, how could you not? You have children and all that stuff. And the last thing I thought as I left the conversation, I went back to my car. I'm like, this guy doesn't get it, man.
Yeah.
It's like, we all have different realities.
Yeah, right.
My reality is different than his.
Correct.
I love my hierarchy of needs and wants and interests are all different.
That's exactly right. Like think about just you and I in this room. Like, I vote fiscally because I'm responsible for 9 employees.
Correct.
So I have to make sure that 9 employees that work for me are paid before I take anything.
Of course.
So that means I need a president that is going to help businesses. It's going to be pro-business, help, put a better tax code in place, do things.
Correct.
I want to make sure the people that I'm in charge of are taken care of. Like that's my first priority. Them and my family, right? I've got to make sure that's taken care of. So I vote for those reasons. Like that's my top priority.
Of course.
It's not how you feel. It's not, we're going to have, men playing women's sports. It's funny. I can't remember which interview Trump was on.
Hopefully that's going to go away, right?
Well, it's funny because he made a good point. He's like, I was an officer for 4 years. He's like, not one time did I get a call from anyone that says, you know what? We need to get men in women's sports. He's like, it's not really an issue. He's like, I don't understand how this become an issue. And I'm like, and I wonder where that actually started from. Because we created Title IX for a reason. We created gender-based discrimination laws for a reason to protect sexual classes. And we're talking about protecting women's rights, but yet they're voting for the party that is trying to erase gender identity.
Doesn't it almost seem like the seed of that bizarreness was planted in the electorate and then fostered somehow, almost from an outside force?
Yeah, yes, I'm sure. I don't think that's become an issue in the actual system itself. I think it's created almost as a distraction. Because I mean, again, if you look at the simplistic nature of it, we have laws that are put in place to protect women, to protect discrimination-based laws. And, people are voting for now the party saying, if you voted for him, you're not for women's rights. It's not the case at all. They're voting for the party that's actually trying to take that away by removing gender-based identities. You're in essence removing sex-based discrimination laws.
Yes. But that takes, to get there, to make that obvious in your face, you've got to ask ask 2 more questions, and we just don't do that.
Right, because you can't. They can't.
We don't.
They're mutually they're opposite.
Of course,
you can't have both. You can't say we're all for women's rights, but we also want to vote for the party that says there's not real gender identity. So that's a protected class. If I'm a guy and I can say I identify as a female and walk into like a female only place that now there's no laws, my identity is protected, I'm not letting. I can sue them.
Is this DEI nonsense going to slowly leave corporate?
I mean, I think it already has. Not saying it's nonsense.
Were they afraid to? Did it happen because there was a fear of being financially bullied?
Yeah,
coming out of the pandemic.
Well, yeah, there was a lot of stuff that was taught. There was a lot of like banks that weren't. And if I remember correctly, I'd have to go back and don't quote me on this, but I believe there were a lot of like these. They had to have a certain DEI or ESG score to get lending from certain institutions. So these were these artificial things that were created.
Is that a federal thing?
I think it was based upon. I don't know if it was federal. I don't know the whole gist of it. If it was a federal mandate or it was each bank's mandate. They were trying to increase shareholder value by saying, "Hey, we have a higher ESG score."
So if that's a federal score rating or a mandate,
I don't know that it is.
That's something that can be removed.
There's a lot of things that they're going to change really quick. A lot of the executive orders are going to come in really quick off the bat. I think we're going to get back to being a pro-business country. Because again, what people don't understand, like small business is what runs the country.
Well, the most insane thing to me is the expectation that there's going to be social programs without tax revenue. And the next question is, well, wait, where's the tax revenue come from? But it never gets there. Like the money just magically appears.
In what people,
how's that work?
Well, the Fed prints money. Let's start. I'm actually reading a good book right now on the Fed, which is it's called The Lords of Easy Money. It's actually a really good book. But besides that point, like what they have to understand too is if you keep creating higher taxes and making people pay higher wages to employees, there's AI now. And let's be real, AI is getting really, really good.
No question.
And it's going to just force people out of the job market because companies are going to look at it and say, okay, what type of employees can I replace with AI? If I have to now pay these people, if they move like the federal exemption for overtime limit up to like 50-some thousand they're talking about, that's crazy. Like a lot of the people that are exempt employees may be admin employees or, like lower level managers that, they're not at that level where a company can afford to pay them that.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to say, okay, if I have to pay them this, or I have to pay them overtime, they typically work maybe 9 hours a day. So I'm paying them overtime. Now I got to keep track of this now. It creates all this other stuff. Can I just replace them with AI?
Of course.
And there's a lot of employees out there that can be.
Of course.
You don't want to see that happen, but that's the unintended consequence of raising taxes and putting all these regulations in place that's saying, you can't have non-competes. You have to raise your salary to meet the overtime exemption. Like these are not pro-business.
No, it's just another example of government getting deeply. It's coming from an authoritarian style of government. Really, it is. I mean, it's a philosophy.
100%.
We're gonna cry. It's what a campaign line. The Kamala, whatever. Kamala.
Yep.
Kamala. Okay. What a campaign line. Her response to Donald Trump was, because the prices are too high because of a lot of economic reasons, pure economic reasons, based upon the decisions the Biden administration made.
Yeah.
She didn't address those. She wants to go after greedy companies that have artificially and unfairly raised pricing. In my eyes, the only time a company would unfairly raise prices in context would be under a national emergency, like a disaster.
Yeah, right.
Outside of that, pricing is a pure effect of free enterprise.
Yeah, economics, market demand, cost of goods.
But no, again, it's the greedy corporations. Right. Instead of like saying, trusting that the average American has a basic understanding of economics, a basic understanding of it. And you're going to demonize the golden goose that pays the tax money to push all your free shit out there.
Correct.
You go demonize that.
It's
asinine.
Well, it's the problem when you don't have people that understand business.
There's no question
for business.
There's no question.
Like I run a business, right, and I have employees I have to pay for. I have a lot of expenses. Like people have no clue the stuff that goes on in the background, like just to keep the firm running, right? Mm-hmm. Like every little bit matters. Like every little tweak matters. If my taxes go up a little bit, that changes everything. If cost of goods go up, if it's like, and things have went up, like, we've increased revenue this year, but our profitability actually went down.
Yeah. Because
just the cost of things, I didn't raise prices. The cost of things went up, cost of employees went up, cost of taxes went up. Right. And so that's margins I'm having to manage every single day, which people don't understand that as a business owner. Like, it's not just like we go out and sell stuff and make a bunch of money. I'm the last person to make anything. Mm-hmm. And this is what politicians understand about business. The business owner isn't sitting there paying. Now, there are some greedy ones out there that pay themselves a shit ton of money and screw their employees over. But most good business owners, they don't make a dime. They're paying their employees, even when their employees are they're not profitable. They're paying money out of their pocket for the business to keep that place afloat. Like, I've done that. Like, I've reinvested everything back into the
companies that are privately held.
Yeah, like as a law firm, because I know we're going to grow and we're working out the kinks. But there's been times where like everything that the company makes, I just put back in.
Of course,
like
of course.
And that's things that people don't understand. Like, if politicians don't get the stress that comes with that. And, when they make one little change, increase taxes or go, like, that impacts not only me, but everybody that works for me and their families. Those are the consequences. It's not just the big businesses it impacts.
Do you think the average person on the street understands the concept that it really, in the end, it really comes down to philosophy? It starts at philosophy. It really does, man.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think people understand that.
My viewpoint, it comes down to what philosophy does this group of people in political power have, and what are they willing to do with it, and what are they willing to do to enact it?
Yeah, I don't think that's understood by most people. I really don't.
I don't think so either.
No, because I think people don't even understand what their own philosophy is. If they don't even have their own philosophy, how are they going to think everybody else does? Because again, like understanding why you do things, your intention behind it, your why, and your personal philosophy. We've talked about this a million times. It's so important because it informs the decisions you make in life.
Correct. And isn't it easier to look at the world and understand the world once you're in tune with your own beliefs?
Absolutely. It makes things very clear. Like, once I got really clear on what I believe in and what my philosophy is, very easy to say no to things that don't align with it.
Yes.
Very easy to say yes.
It's also, I think, too, I found it over the years to be easier to get to an understanding of why people do what they do.
Yeah. Agreed. I agree. I think I do think some people don't know why they do things. They just do them because they're just kind of meandering through life, trying to get to the next stage. So they may not know why they're doing things, but then here's what happens. If they could take a step back and look back over the past 6 to 12 months, they'll understand what their philosophy is by looking at their actions. Like, that's the piece that people don't get.
Well, they might not like what they see.
Well, right. Like, you don't have to sit there and be this, Buddha and try and figure out this personal philosophy and meditate on. It's like, just take a stop, look back at things you've done over the past 6 months, and look at your calendar. Like, if you go back and look at your calendar, you'll see what's important. You'll see what your philosophies are. Like, that's it. Like,
it's not real esoteric. It's more meat and potatoes stuff to go back and look at it. But I mean, you're right. I mean, how you spend your time.
How you spend your time says it all. Like, if you're the type of person that's running out the door, at 5 o'clock and, and putting in the 8-hour day, but that's it. That's your philosophy. Being ultra successful in your career is not your philosophy. It's not part of your philosophy.
There's no right or wrong answers.
Exactly. Like, you're working to live.
Yes.
And that's it. But like, if you look at how you fill your calendar, what matters?
Yeah. And there's like if you're working to live, which again, there's no right or wrong answer.
No.
I mean, it's like, I would think most people probably are,
Mm-hmm.
at least mentally,
Mm-hmm.
The problem with that is that you are often under the thumb of a lot of society.
Yeah.
The more you become independent, the more you start generating income based on your own efforts and so forth. You start to break away from that grip that society has on you. And there's all different levels of that.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way I can explain to someone who doesn't do it. I mean, it's just if you're just a puzzle piece and you go do that, because you're really dependent upon all the rest of that puzzle around you to hold you in place.
I believe if you're in a profession and if you say to yourself, I'm going to commit to 1 year of just being the best at my craft, and that means however long it takes, whatever I have to do day to day to just keep improving, you will be a completely different person 365 days from now, and you could probably double your income, like truly. Like, and that's in all sincerity. If you say, but that means like that year you're going to focus on. It's not going to be when it's convenient. It's going to be every single day.
Oh, we live in a recreational society.
Yeah,
you know what I agree?
We do.
And every year that goes by, it seems like it's more and more recreational society
because there's more things to recreate with.
Yeah.
You look at technology and new things coming out, new information, and I can find myself spending an hour on TikTok just looking at shit.
Going down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, I go on rabbit holes all the time. Luckily, I do it like when I'm working out, so I feel like it's not a waste. Like if I'm on the treadmill or like that's typically when I'm on TikTok or something. But I'm like, man, I could probably be reading a book or doing something else, which I normally do. There are days where I'm like, I just spent 30 minutes on TikTok. What the fuck am I doing?
Sometimes that'll get you through the monotony of a treadmill. Like that's how I look at it. Sometimes it's like, oh, that was not too bad.
No, and then I started watching all these videos. I'm like, oh, like
45 minutes went back. Okay, I'm good.
Yeah, like it definitely. These videos are typically 1 to 3 minutes long. If I listen to 5, and then that's 15 minutes.
I start making bargains with myself like that.
Okay,
too.
I said, okay, I can do this. I can do that. But
I got my playlist on Amazon. If I can just get through these 12 songs, I know where I'll be.
Right. I'm the same way. I'm like, okay, I know. I listen to this many, watch this many videos.
Oh,
they're this minutes long. That's how it's going to be. But it's true. Like I think, it's how you spend your time truly does matter. And I think it if you look at it, because I do that sometimes too. Like when I had like a month, I'm like, I don't think I did shit this month. Like I felt like unproductive or something. I'll look at my calendar and say, okay, it either affirms what I'm believing, or it makes you realize, no, I did do a lot. I just maybe didn't move the needle like I wanted to.
Yeah.
But I always do that. I look back and say, okay, what did I do this month? Who was I meeting with? How was I spending my time?
Yeah.
Because it matters. It's important. That's something everybody should do. That's kind of like do a monthly audit.
Oh, most definitely. And oftentimes you're not going to like what you see.
No.
But know that you gotta work through that. I mean,
it's not hard. It's not hard to excel in this world.
No, but it really requires one to be honest with oneself on a more regular basis. I mean, you don't have to have 100% blunt honesty at the start.
No,
but you got to start making less and less opportunities to kid yourself. And start becoming more honest with yourself and work toward pure honesty. Work to the point where you're looking in the mirror and you're not bullshitting yourself at all. And it won't come overnight.
No.
Especially if you've been bullshitting yourself. It's not. I'm speaking from experience.
Dude,
my lows were when I was bullshitting myself a lot.
Yeah.
And my highs were when, when I was actually running on all cylinders is where I wouldn't bullshit myself because I didn't have to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. Dude, if I could go back and tell my 25-year-old self to just do what's fucking required more than when it's required.
Oh yeah.
And don't bullshit yourself and everything's on you. Like I understood that like in my late when I started reading more, but if I would have understood that in my early 20s, like everything's on me, meaning it's no one's fault but my own. If something happens or doesn't happen, I'm responsible for it. And took ownership of everything, I'd be in a different place.
Oh, I
right
remember
now.
being very young in my 20s, and it was so bad that I was doing negative behaviors,
Yeah.
and then when things would go sour for me, I was looking for an excuse. Okay, how can I cover up my negative behavior by blaming the circumstance I'm in on something else that I encountered?
Yeah.
You know, almost like in a weird way, I'll admit it, almost like if I do that, I'll foster pity amongst those around me here, and I can slide my way through.
Yeah. Yeah.
I admit it. I went through a short period of time in my life. I was looking to maneuver that way.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to go out and party and, you know, fuck around.
Yeah.
And fuck off.
Yeah.
Instead of really doing what I should have been doing.
Yeah. I mean, I was the same way when I was younger, but I think, you know, as you get older, you realize what it actually takes.
Well, sometimes the stress of having to deal with like the recovery of that.
Yeah.
It's way worse than just doing the damn work.
Yeah.
Or just being responsible.
Yes. Responsibility. I mean, that is, if there's a key to life, like that's it. Responsibility and accountability. If you're responsible and accountable for your actions and inactions, all you do, life gets very fucking easy.
Well, I know that we're both experiencing an awesome thing because our kids are about the exact same age, and they're both launching pretty quickly here. And I'm venturing to say that we're not seeing them, as far as we know, dealing with what we just talked about. That same level of like disarray, careening from wall to wall, and then covering up bad decisions with like, you know.
No, I mean, I don't
you know what I mean? Like they're like, to this point, anyways, they really seem like they're not making some of the same mistakes that we went through.
No, you hope they don't. You hope they learn from us. Like I've told Gabe
for sure
mistakes I've made, like a shit ton of mistakes, and he learns from it. And it's just now it's like helping him navigate the business world. You know, working at the firm is like how do I, you know, helping him to understand like how things should be and how you should operate in these situations. And that's just something that comes with time.
I've said it multiple times on this podcast, and I know Rocco kind of thinks I'm nuts. But in reality, I would love to find a way to monetize this.
Yeah,
that's the guy I should talk to. But that whole concept of like we pay the wrong motivational speakers. Like we should be paying people to can bluntly come up and tell the story of all the mistakes and put it in a humorous way, and you know. And talk about some recovery and all that within the context of the story, but everybody wants to go show the highlight reel.
Yeah,
we do that. What I mean, it's crazy.
We need people. What I've learned, just even over the past 3 or 4 years, like running the firm, you need people in your life that call you on your bullshit.
Yeah,
like too many people surround themselves with people that validate their feelings. And I'm just like,
as you become more successful, how do you guard against that? Because as you know, success attracts, right? So how do you guard against not finding yourself in the position 7-10 years from now where you're surrounded with nothing but yes men and you're being told everything you want to hear all the time?
Well, you want to like, so me as a business owner, right? Like I find people outside of my business to talk to that are like me, but are going to call me on my bullshit. I go to them because I don't want someone to tell me that's a good idea. I don't want somebody like, yeah, that's great. Now, if it is, they'll tell me, but I want someone to push, challenge, and poke it and break it apart and let me answer the questions. Like I'll never, you know, like what's the saying? They say you should never go to like your grandmother, your mother, or your wife for business advice. And I can't remember where I heard that, but it's like, it's, you know, and again, because they're always going to tell you because they care for you, right? They're going to tell you what you want to hear. And
maybe
not all. No, you're right. Like you're right. No, you're 100% right. And it's not, and it may not be the case, right? But I think you have to find in business, you have to find people that are going to be really raw with you, like really, really. And once I found those people in my life, it really changed everything for me. Because I can go to them, they're like, yeah, that's fucking dumb. And didn't you think about this? Just like, no, I completely missed. I didn't even think about that. And it makes me better because they're not coddling me.
Yeah.
They're not.
But you got to want to seek that out.
Yeah. Like you have to, you want kicked in the nuts every once in a while. Like you do. Like I know I want challenged and tested because I want to make sure that my theories are correct. And I'm not perfect by any means, and I make a shit ton of mistakes, and I want people to see them and call me on them because that's how you get better.
Yeah, I get that. But again, it comes down to the fact that looking in the mirror and not willing to bullshit yourself.
Yeah.
And you're never going to ask for someone else to give you unvarnished advice if you've been bullshitting yourself the entire time.
Well, right. Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. Like, you have to get to a point in life where, and it's hard to, I think, that you can really look in the mirror and say, I don't know what I'm doing. I have that fucking every week. I do that.
Yeah. But once you do get, would you not agree that once you get to, or once you finally reach and obtain that humility to do what you just said, then from that point on, it's easy. You can see the value of feedback and value of advice. But getting to that point where you can actually admit that, you know, you don't have it all figured out, let someone break that facade of confidence that you've been exuding for a period of time, being vulnerable.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. Like, I've went to people in my life and said, okay, like, guys, I have no idea what I'm doing in this situation. Like, I don't know what to do. Tell me what I'm not seeing, what I'm not doing wrong. And the people I go to, will they fucking tell me? They'll be like,
it's like that's why I liked about our friend David Allen.
Yeah,
because we had this similar conversation a couple of years ago when he's on. David, by the way, I'm waiting for you. Now we're back in business. Now he's completely insanely busy, but I'm going to get him in here.
Yeah.
He talked at great length about that.
Yeah.
You know, being vulnerable enough to say, hey, I need help here. I need other opinions in a room. Am I losing my mind? Is this a right move? And finding humility. We both talked about the fact that, it wasn't easy. Finding humility is not. Once you get it, it's a beautiful thing.
Oh, it's great. It's so hard to get.
Yeah, it's life changing if you really embrace it.
Especially if you're a type A person and you've always thought you've excelled at things. It's hard to
certainly.
Because again, I was a smart kid. I was in the gifted program, and it's like, get that point in life where you're like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Like, getting to that point it was scary, but it was also refreshing, because once I was able to admit that to myself,
most definitely.
Now I sought information from everywhere. I sought criticism from everyone. I'm like, give me feedback, like, criticize me, tell me what I'm doing wrong. Like, even if it's the smallest thing, it all matters, because it's information that I can analyze, synthesize, and have an output.
You become a sponge.
That's what I love. Like, that's what I love. Like, the people I meet with on a regular basis to talk about business and to talk about just challenges we're facing, not any of those people, you included, have never been, that's awesome, man. Great idea. Like, even if it is, but if I really thought it was a great idea, but you've always questioned about it first.
Oh, most definitely.
Like, you're never gonna be like, take it at face value. Like, well, what about
anything?
Correct. And that's what you want. You want people to ask the questions that make you uncomfortable, that you have to answer. That, I think, if you find those people in your life, cherish them and utilize them on a consistent basis, like a business coach. That's why I use Mike. Mike does that to me all the time.
Oh yeah.
But it's so important. It's so important, because you can't excel until you can look in the mirror and understand your own vulnerabilities and your own weaknesses.
I know, and it's just I don't know. Does it just go against human nature? Is it just the ego?
I think it's a lot of the ego, right?
Fear too, probably, right?
Fear.
If I let somebody in, they're going to see all the warts.
Yeah, but here's the thing: we all have warts. To me, because I used to think the same way. Like, if I let somebody, if people know I don't know what I'm doing, they're going to think I'm weak and try and take me out. It's like, well, no, like, everybody is in the same boat. I think being vulnerable is a sign of strength. It shows that I'm confident enough in my ability to solve problems, to be vulnerable with you, to say, I don't know what I'm doing in this situation.
Yeah.
But if you try and use that vulnerability against me, I can solve that problem very quickly.
Right.
I think that's an important thing to understand.
So is vulnerability a tactic?
A vulnerability is a strength in my mind. I think, one, if you're truly vulnerable by nature, or it's an authentic vulnerability, one, it allows you to become better so much faster, because you're seeking information, you're seeking critique, and you're seeking criticism, and you're taking that information, making yourself better. Two, it can be a tactic, I guess, but I think it's got to be, I think vulnerability is such a strength, because it allows you to develop, and it also allows, if you're vulnerable first, it'll allow other people to put their guard down. then you can form a deeper relationship with a person.
So true. You got have the courage to be the first to show your vulnerability.
Yes. You do that. I mean, you'd be surprised at how many relationships you'll develop at such a deeper level, and so much faster than normal. It's true. Just look at my own life. It has happened. Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know how we got here from the election, but
no, but do you think this? It's just nicer out there now.
Yeah, I think. Well,
since last Tuesday,
look, the election happened. Everyone's kind of just moved on. Like,
I would hope. Some
none of the winning. Some are a winning side, but the people that voted for Trump, like, no one's out there gloating and and like calling other people names because they didn't vote for them. It's just like, let's get back to life. Let's get back to normal. Let's get back to
have
America.
Consequences. You don't win everything. It's a good lesson for life. I mean,
they should be the wake-up call that America needs, and the people that are on the far left to say, hey, they aren't buying it anymore. How do we just all come together and do what's best for the nation as a whole? We don't all have to agree. We all come from different backgrounds, socioeconomic statuses, genders, race, national origin. We all, but inside we're all people. And how do we do what's best for the people of this country?
I do have a question though. This has always puzzled me. Like, I don't understand how. I really struggle with how a Democratic voter looked at the current economic system and thought that 4 more years of that was going to work. I was going to work. It's going to be good. It's going to be positive. And this is what I want to do. And this is what I want to see continue. And I don't understand.
Brainwashing.
Yeah, I don't understand how 4 more years of this was appetizing.
I don't either. I can't rationalize it in my head. Purely economically, I can't. There may be other reasons you're voting a person, great, but from an economic standpoint, I can't make it make sense. Knowing what I paid for things under Trump and what I pay for things now under Biden, totally different ballgames.
So the hatred for Trump really swayed a lot of people.
Yes, and again, if you're voting because you hate somebody, just don't vote.
Yeah, it comes down to feelings again.
Yeah, like your feelings shouldn't matter that much. Like, we have to do what's best for the country.
Let me ask you this one last question here. When you talk about our society, should feelings matter at all?
Okay, that's a good question. Yes, I think they should matter in the right context. Feelings should not,
in regards to public policy, should feelings be a consideration?
If you're saying in regards to public policy, no, because feelings are artificial. They're not tangible. They're not objective.
That would be a big change.
But think about it, they're not objective. Your feelings,
I'm right with you, 100%.
We could both feel sad about something, but we have objective stand. We have our subjective standards are different. What makes you sad may make me happy, and vice versa. So how do we rationalize public policy with feelings when there's no objective definition of a feeling?
4 years.
Well, I'm saying, I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm saying, if you ask the question, should it matter? I said, no, it should not be matter. It should not matter, because
I agree with you.
It's not an objective standard.
I agree with you.
You're just saying, okay, we're going to subjectively decide whose feelings matter.
And that would be acting on a whim.
Correct. Yes, that's right.
Right. People don't like to use that word whim because it's just so trivial, but I'm sorry.
Listen,
if you're trying to push feelings into the public policy sphere, you're going to get pushback from me.
Yeah, I mean, true. Like, yes, we should not be making policy decisions based upon feelings. Feelings are, like I said, subjective. Like, I loved this drink I made today, and you looked at me like I was crazy.
I didn't know what you were doing.
Yeah, I mean, so it was, that's why I had a great feeling about Diet Dr. Pepper.
And now it's protein shake. Watching your great feeling, I'm probably going to drive.
You're going to try one. And
maybe on the way home.
You're welcome.
All right, y'all. Thanks again. But I think we're probably going to be here next Tuesday. One never knows.
No, yeah, we'll be here next Tuesday.
We'll be here.
Definitely.
Thank you. We'll see you.
See ya.